Welcome to the session on counseling skills for law professional. Today we are going to discuss an important topic, that is role of a lawyer as a counselor. In this series we have already had 2-3 sessions on the role the lawyer plays as a counselor, and we have understood the psychological aspects of counseling skills as well, and trying to see today as to what are the important counseling skills which are there for a lawyer, and the lawyer should look at them from what angle, and how the lawyer should utilize these particular skills to his benefit while he is doing an interview with the client or speaking to the client to serve the client better. If you look at the counseling skills goals, there are 5 primary goals of counseling skills. And this I am talking about from a general perspective. And we will pick up 3 important goals of counseling skills which are relevant to the lawyer's context. And these are supportive listening. And we have talked about supporting listening before and active listening before. Active listening is a major component of counseling skills, and you will note that active listening plays a very important role in understanding the client, trying to understand what exactly the client means when he utters a word. Not only the verbal cues, but even the non-verbal cues play a very important role, as it is said that non-verbal communication forms the major part of a communication between two people. And a lawyer as a counselor has to observe these non-verbal cues or non-verbal communication which the client is offering. So we will have a separate session on non-verbal communications, and there we will talk about these measures, this body language, and those kinds of important elements. Here we are focusing more on the problem management and managing a problem situation. So when you talk about managing a problem situation and problem management, in case of managing a problem situation, this will be a situation generally which a lawyer would face when he's interviewing a client, because you are talking about the situation in hand. So when a client comes to a lawyer, it comes for with a situation in hand. It may be non-honoring a rent agreement, maybe a breach of a contract, maybe a divorce. And ancillary to this particular problem, there may be several other problems which the client may be having, but we are not going into the details of that particular problem. However, the lawyer must also look at these particular problems briefly to see if it impacts the problem or situation in hand. If yes, then definitely there has to be some measure which the lawyer has to take to advise the client on those ancillary problems as well. If it is not, then it is advisable that the lawyer should not go into the deeper details of the client's life, and that actually also helps in establishing trust. Other two goals in counseling skills are not important for a lawyer as such, because we are not going to transform or the philosophy of life of the person who has come. This generally happens in psychological or psychometric counseling skills. But when we are talking about counseling skills of a lawyer, we basically focus on these 3 important: supportive listening, managing the problem situation at hand, and general problem management, and trying to have a look at it. Now, if I have to have a look as a lawyer, lawyer always is grappling with the value choices. So he has to choose between two elements. Either the choice is between equality and authority, choice is between possibility and compulsion, choices between humanistic concern and values of rigor and discipline. So a lawyer has a duty towards the court, lawyer has a duty towards the society, lawyer has a duty to the community, and lawyer also has a duty towards its client. And there is a balance which requires to be maintained over here. So my suggestion would be that read this particular article, quite an interesting article, an inquiry into the legal counseling by Robert Redmount, who discusses about these different value choices. Though a bit of a philosophical article, but I believe to the context as far as your present session is concerned. When a lawyer is talking to a client, or a client comes to a lawyer, he comes to the lawyer with a dispute, and there is a problem with which the lawyer, with the client approaches the lawyer. Now, here it is very important for the lawyer to go deeper into the issues and try to find out exactly what happened. And there comes a very important model, which is referred to as the iceberg model. And this model is utilized to find the interest. And it is not that easy task. The lawyer's counseling skill lies here. And a better lawyer, a better counselor, a better lawyer with a counseling skills would be able to reach deeper into the issues. And if he is not a good counselor, it will be difficult for the lawyer to reach to different stages of finding the interest. As you would know, in the iceberg model and the famous movie Titanic, you must have seen that there was an iceberg, and tip of the iceberg is visible, but there lies a huge amount of mountain of ice under the water, which is not visible. So the lawyer counselor has to actually go deep and try to find out these mountains which are hidden, because client, when comes to the lawyer, comes with a position. So he will have a position. He will say that yes, he breached my contract, or he abused me, or he is at fault, the X is at fault. This is something, a submission which will be given to a lawyer at the first instance. So the lawyer has to go into the dispute, and every dispute would have an issue in which there is a disagreement. So one has to go to the stage to find out the issues. And then when you dig further and try to find out, you will find interest. And what are the interests, what are the positive intentions, why this particular issue has come up, what are the subject matter of the problem, and what are the elements in issue between the parties. And this aspect needs to be brought up before the lawyer during the counseling exercise. And ultimately, what the client wants from this whole exercise or legal consultation which he is taking, that is also very important to find out. And that is where the stage 4 of finding the interest comes. So these are the 4 stages, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. So during the counseling, the lawyer has to start from stage 1 and to reach at stage 4. This iceberg model is also very important, and this is one of the prominent thing which is being taught in your mediation training program. So I believe you will also undergo a mediation course during your LLB, which now I believe is going to be mandatory. So this will be dealt with in greater detail. We will have some exercises over there in that particular course. In this course, I believe we don't have any exercise on finding the interest. However, during the counseling, we will observe that how do you differentiate between stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and stage 4, and whether you are taking the position as such or trying to dig deeper and trying to find out the issues. That will be an important exercise which you will be carrying out as a practical in this workshop, that is counseling skills for law professionals. Now, if I have to look at this particular aspect in detail, and try to find out here, it is very important to see that the counseling as a procedural technique and skill requires a number of elements to be looked at. And that is, one is empathy. And empathy is very important, and why empathy is important? Because the client which comes to a lawyer is having a lot of issues, a lot of problems, and he needs to have trust in the person with whom he is talking. And and the first few minutes of interaction, first few minutes of showing of empathy brings that kind of a trust with the client, and then he will be opening up, and then that will be very important for a lawyer to find the quality of information, to investigate the matter further. And if I refer back to the previous slide, you would note that we are talking about finding the interest, right? So it will help you go deeper in investigation, trying to advise the client decision making, and forming the impression and getting the information. Here it is very important for you to understand that there are two kinds of information which the client gives during counseling. One is hard information, that is the facts which we are talking about. And when you talk about the facts, facts are not given as a raw facts. It will be not a written statement given to you. It will be coupled with values, biases, preferences, sometimes even emotions attached to it. As a counselor, lawyer, you need to segregate them and look at the hard facts without losing empathy. It is very important. And at the same time, you are trying to analyze this fact, hard fact, segregating the emotions part of it, and trying to analyze it from the legal perspective, trying to see that what law means it, what are the motives behind it, what would be the outcome if you decide this way, and what would be the effect of this decision which you are going to do. And that is where comes a very important skill which requires to be understood by the legal counselor, is to see as to how he will sift through this information and try to get more information from the client, trying to paraphrase, trying to summarize the issues or statements of the client and give it back to the client in a summarized way, whether he means this. So it is very important step, so these three things are very important. And then ultimately one has to give suggestion. So the lawyer who is sitting as a counselor is not only there to counsel and then leave it, because he has to give suggestion and then decide as to what has to be done in this case, whether you file a criminal complaint, you file a civil complaint, you go for a family court, or you go for arbitration, you go for a mediation, or you just go for a family settlement. These options has to be given to the clients, and ultimately implementation also comes. So many a times the lawyer who is a counselor is also the implementer. So these two areas are very important, and you will find that many a times the counselor who is a lawyer conflicts himself with the implementation stage. So he's interested in the client, to take his case, and he will always suggest that yes, go to the court without understanding the case. So many a times this happens, and a good lawyer will never do that. So you will see all the big lawyers, they would never advise a client just because they want that particular case from him. In fact, many of the times, they will choose over. In fact, most of the times they will choose over their philosophy of the practice, and that is where I tell you about the philosophical debate which we talked about. The value choices is very important here, and ultimately the suggestion which has been given may not be implemented, means may not go well. Like for example, somebody suggested mediation failed, then there has to be a reconsideration and one has to look at it again. So counseling of a client doesn't stop at a place, it keeps on going throughout the case till a solution is reached in that particular case for the client by the lawyer. Now, if I talk about the lawyer as a counselor, what are the important things which he should possess? He has to have concern. He should be inquisitive capacity. Intuition is very, very important. So he should be intuitive to gauge and sense the cues given by the clients. He has to have perception and insights. So these are the very important elements which are there for a lawyer as a counselor. So just focus on these. This is important for you. And ultimately, if I talk about the function of counseling, basically the counselor's responsibility is to encourage the client's participation and understanding and decision to share, and making the client aware as to what are the reasonably possible solutions, possible suggestions, and in fact to insist on a fuller exchange of information, not to hide anything, and to be constantly vigilant about deception and manipulation practice. So it is also very important, because many a times client hide a lot of things. Particularly you will note this in case of criminal trials, and criminal cases. Nobody would come forward and say that I have murdered someone or I did like this. It takes a lot of effort in trying to understand and look at these particular issues and try to find out. So that confidence and trust is very important. So going forward, I would like you to go ahead with a discussion forum. So I have created a discussion forum. So I would like your reflection on the topic role of a lawyer as a counselor. So kindly go through the material which has been already shared. Go into the details of these particular aspect, including counseling, including the value choices, and try to discuss it on the discussion forum. This is a graded discussion forum, so you would be marked, 5 marks will be awarded on the discussion forum. So I'll be reviewing the discussion forum periodically and try to see your comments. You can open up a new thread under this role of a lawyer as a counselor and try to discuss amongst your peers and colleagues on the LMS. So with this, thank you, enjoy and happy learning. Stay safe.